Hello there, my name is Payal Narayani and welcome to this video series. यहाँ हम कवर कर रहे हैं पूनम दलाल दहिया की एंशिएंट एंड मेडिवल इंडिया की 3rd एडिशन, जो कि लेटेस्ट एडिशन है. इस किताब को हम ट्रूली रीड करेंगे और जहाँ ज़रूरत पड़ेगी वहाँ हम साथ ही साथ UPSC एंड स्टेट सर्विसेज में आए हुए प्रीवियस ईयर के क्वेश्चंस भी डिस्कस करेंगे. एंड इस सीरीज़ में वीडियोज़ लगभग 30 to 35 मिनट्स के होंगे, बड़े इफेक्टिव होंगे और हम ऑलमोस्ट 40 to 45 लेक्चर्स में ये पूरी किताब कवर करेंगे. और अगर आपने ये सीरीज़ 3 to 4 टाइम्स देख ली तो बिल्कुल ये किताब आपके दिमाग में छप जाएगी एंड ट्रस्ट मी, आपकी एक्यूरेसी भी काफ़ी इंक्रीज़ हो जाएगी. साथ ही साथ आपका रिवीजन भी काफ़ी आसान हो जाएगा. सो अगर आपको रिवीजन के साथ साथ वैल्यू एडिशन भी करना है तो ये सीरीज़ पूरी फॉलो करें. आपको बस आपके पास ये किताब रखकर मुझे सुनना है एंड मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स मार्क करने हैं. So without any further delay, let's get started. Hello there, welcome back to the channel Ghatna Sutra. यहाँ हम कवर कर रहे हैं पूनम दलाल दहिया की एंशिएंट एंड मेडिवल इंडिया 3rd एडिशन, जो कि लेटेस्ट एडिशन है. और हम आज शुरू करें विद द टॉपिक ऑफ औरंगज़ेब फ्रॉम द मुगल्स. सो बिफोर वी मूव अहेड, आप इस टॉपिक को ट्रिपल स्टार मार्क कर लीजिए क्योंकि इसके ऊपर UPSC में 2003 में सवाल पूछा गया था. साथ ही छत्तीसगढ़ PCS में 2011 में, BPSC में 2022 में, झारखंड PCS में 2003 में एंड UP PCS में 2006, 2009 एंड 2019 में इसके ऊपर सवाल आया था. सो ट्रिपल स्टार मार्क दिस टॉपिक, इट्स हाईली इम्पोर्टेंट. औरंगज़ेब 1658 to 1707 CE was one of the ablest of the Mughal emperor under whom the Mughal empire reached its greatest territorial limit and emerged as the largest single state ever known in India from the dawn of the history to the rise of the British power. Reigned first 25 years in North India when Maratha power under Shivaji emerged, last 25 years in Deccan. Northern conquest. Aurangzeb could expand Mughal power in Assam in the northeast region. In 1662 CE, Mir Jumla, Aurangzeb's ablest general and the governor of Bengal, led the expedition against the Ahoms. Despite concluding the favorable treaty, Mughals suffered heavy losses and Jumla died in 1663 CE. On his way back to Dhaka, another notable achievement in the northeast was capture of the island of Sondeep and Chitgao in 1664 CE under Shaysta Khan, the new governor of Bengal, who also chastised the Arkanese pirates. However, the Ahom kingdom could not be controlled for the long, and the Mughal Faujdar had to face resistance and regular conflicts. Thus, by 1680, the Ahom succeeded in capturing Kamrupa and Mughal control over the territory ended. Conquest of Deccan. Professor Satish Chandra identifies 4 distinct phases in Aurangzeb's policy towards the Deccan state. First phase 1, 1658 to 1668 CE. The main attempt was to recover the Bijapur from territories belonging to Ahmednagar state, surrendered to it by the Treaty of 1636 CE. Led by Jai Singh, the governor of Deccan, the focus was to get hold of the territories of Kalyani, Bidar, Parenda from Bijapur. The Mughals failed to lay siege on Bijapur in 1665 CE and Jai Singh died in 1667 CE. However, Sholapur was secured by bribery in 1668 CE. Phase 2, 1668 to 1684 CE. The Marathas were considered as a major danger in the Deccan and efforts were made to pressurize Bijapur and Golconda into joining hands with the Mughals against Shivaji and then against his son Sambhaji. Thus, during this phase, attempts were made to secure the help of the Deccan states against Marathas. This shift in Mughal policy was due to the death of Adil Shah of Bijapur, the growing power of Shivaji and the increasing influence of the brother Akhanan and Madanan in Golconda administration. But Aurangzeb's efforts to contain the Maratha was not very successful as the tripartite alliance between Golconda, Shivaji and Bijapur did not allow Aurangzeb to have his way. In 1679 and 1680 CE, desperate efforts by Mughal viceroy Daler Khan to capture Bijapur failed due to this tripartite alliance. Phase 3, 1686 to 1687 CE. Aurangzeb followed the policy of outright annexation of the Deccan state. He personally supervised the siege of Bijapur, 1686 CE, and Golconda, 1687 CE, along with the territory of Karnataka. Aurangzeb made Khirki, founded by Malik Ambar, the capital of Mughal Deccan, and named it Aurangabad. Phase 4, 1687 to 1707 CE. Aurangzeb spent most of his time in Deccan, and despite of the conflict with Marathas, he managed to keep the region under Mughal control. It was during this period that Sambhaji, Shivaji's son, was captured and executed at Sangameshwar. But after his death in 1707 CE, the Aurangabad in Deccan, the Maratha reasserted their independence and succeeded within a short span of time. In fact, the destruction of the Deccan kingdom was a political blunder on part of Aurangzeb, as with the fall of the Deccan Sultanate, the barrier between the Mughals and the Maratha was removed, and there ensued a direct confrontation between them. Also, his Deccan campaign exhausted the Mughal treasury. According to J.N. Sarkar, the Deccan ulcer ruined Aurangzeb, religious policy and rebellion. Various rebellions took place during his reign due to his harsh religious policy. This included the rebellions of the Jat peasantry at Mathura under the leader Gokhla in 1669 CE, under Rajaram in 1685 CE, and under Chauraman in 1691 CE. The Satnami peasantry in Punjab and the Bundelas in Bundelkhand under King Chhatrasal in 1672 CE. Aurangzeb was a staunch and orthodox Muslim in his personal life, and his ideal was to transform India into an Islamic state. Initially, Aurangzeb banned the construction of new Hindu temples and the repair of the old temples, but later he gradually started destroying Hindu temples. The celebrated temple of Keshavaraya at Mathura, built by Bir Singh Dev Bandela in the reign of Jahangir, and the Vishwanath temple at Banaras were reduced to ruins and mosques erected in their places. In 1679 CE, he reimposed jizya and pilgrim tax. He was also not tolerant of other Muslim sects. The celebration of Muharram was stopped. In fact, his invasion against the Deccan Sultanate was partly due to his hatred of the Shia faith. In 1675 CE, he executed the 9th Sikh Guru Tej Bahadur, which resulted in the rebellion of the Sikh community against him. He gave extensive power to the office of Muhtsabi. He gave excessive power to the office of Muhtsas. He gave excessive power to the office of Mutsaib, the officer entrusted to enforce moral code and shara. Throughout his kingdom, drinking was prohibited and cultivation and the use of bhang and other drugs were banned. He also forbade music in the Mughal court and discontinued the practice of Jharoka Darshan, as he considered it a superstitious practice and against Islam, and the system of weighing the emperor in gold. The celebration of Dashera forbade astrologer from preparing almanacs, forbade the use of columns inscribed on his coins. The celebration of Dashera forbade astrologer from preparing almanacs, forbade the use of kalma inscribed on his coins, abolished Nowruz as it was a Zoroastrian practice favorable by Safavid ruler of Iran, and also forbade sati. However, it is also believed that he also issued secular decrees called Zawabit, which sometimes, along with supplementing the sharas, often modified in view of the conditions prevalent in India. Another interesting and notable point is that the largest number of Persian works on classical Indian music were written in Aurangzeb's reign, and that Aurangzeb himself was a proficient in playing the veena. Aurangzeb's Rajput policy was alienated the Rajputs and they gradually lost their position in administrative setup. Aurangzeb's policy towards Marwar and Mewar was clumsy. The blundering and brought no advantage to any kind to the Mughals. He wanted to divide the Marwar state between the two principal claimants and in the process alienated both, as also the ruler of Mewar, who considered Mughal interference in such matter to be dangerous precedent. The breach with Mewar and the long drawn out war which followed damaged the moral standing of the Mughal state. On the death of Raja Jaswant Singh of Marwar in 1678 CE, Aurangzeb gave the Teak of Jodhpur to his nephew Inder Singh instead of his son Ajit Singh. The dispute escalated when Ajit Singh's younger brother died. Aurangzeb sent a force to capture the two queens and Ajit from the Rathore mansion in Shahjahanabad, but his attempt was rebuffed by Durgadas Rathore, a senior officer of the former ruler who initially used gunfire in retaliation and eventually escaped from the city of Jodhpur along with Ajit and the two queens, who were disguised as men. A loyal nanny of Ajit Singh left behind her own son at the mansion as Ajit Singh. Rana Raj Singh of Mewar sided with Rani Hadi and the young prince Ajit Singh. In 1679 CE, Aurangzeb attacked Mewar and the Rajputs had to retire to the hills, from where they engaged in sporadic guerrilla warfare. Finally, in 1698 CE, Ajit Singh was recognized as the ruler of Marwar. Personality and character of Aurangzeb. In his private life, Aurangzeb was industrious, disciplined, and was very simple in food, dressing, and did not at all consume wine. He was a learned and a proficient in Arabic and Persian language and was a great lover of books. He patronized the greatest digest of Muslim law in India, Fatwa-e-Alamgiri. He was highly devoted to his religion and conducted prayers 5 times a day, strictly observing the Ramzan fasting. In fact, he earned money for his personal expenses by copying the Quran and selling those copies. Due to all these qualities, he was called Darwish or Zindapir, a living saint. Art and architecture during his reign. Construction of Moti Masjid at Delhi and the Badshahi Mosque at Lahore. Aurangzeb adopted an effective revenue system at Bengal and appointed Murshid Quli Khan as Diwan of Bengal. Dara was a great scholar, wrote Majma-ul Barain, translated Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita, also wrote Sifanat-ul-Awliya, Senat-ul-Awliya, Hasanat-ul-Afrin. इसे आप हाईलाइट कर लीजिए, वर्क डन बाय दारा. ठीक है, ही ट्रांसलेटेड व्हाट उपनिषद एंड भगवद गीता इनटू पर्शियन. एंड whenever we talk about any of the authors, so highlight the work of the author and the name of the author as well. So remember it, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर मैच द पेयर्स में इसके पहले सवाल आ चुके हैं. So probability is higher that we'll find questions like this again in the future. Mirza Muhammad Qasim wrote Alamgiri Nama. Ishwar Das Nagar wrote Fatwa-e-Alamgiri. Nimit Khan Ali wrote Waqa-e-Hyderabad, The Conquest of Golconda by Aurangzeb. Economic and social life under the Mughals. The Mughal period saw important social and economic development. During this period, many European travelers and traders came to India, and their account contained a lot of information about the socio-economic conditions of India. In general, they described the wealth and prosperity of India and also the luxurious life of the aristocratic class on the other side. They also mentioned the poverty and suffering of the ordinary people such as peasants, artisans. Nickteen observed that the people of Deccan were barefooted and it might be due to high cost of leather. Growth of trade. The Indian trading classes were large in numbers, well spread throughout the country and were well organized and highly professional. Seth Bohra traders specialized in long distance trade, with local traders were called Banik. Another class of traders known as Banjaras were specialized in carrying bulk goods and used to move a long distance with their goods on the back of oxen. Interestingly, the trading community did not belong to one caste or religion. For instance, the Gujarati merchants include Hindus, Jains, Muslims. In Rajasthan, Oswals, Maheshwaris and Agrawals came to be called as Marwaris. While in South India, Chetis on the Coromandel coast and the Muslim merchants of Malabar formed important trading communities. Just like communities, different regions emerged as a prominent trading station. For instance, Bengal exported sugar, rice, as well as delicate muslin and silk. The Coromandel coast became a center of textile production. Gujarat was an entry point of foreign goods. From there, fine textile and silk were taken to the North India. Indigo and food grains were exported from North India to Gujarat. It was also distribution center of luxury product of Kashmir such as shawls and carpets. India during the Mughal period witnessed further intensification of her foreign trade owing to the advent of the European trading companies and their direct participation in the Euro-Asian and intra-Asian trade. India had trade relations with Central Asia, Persia and Europe. Her major export includes textile, saltpetre, sugar, opium and spices. In comparison to her export, her imports were limited to selected commodities like war horses, luxury items such as ivory, silver, silk, porcelain, good quality wine, carpets, perfume, glasses, watches, silver utensils, tin and copper, etc. The movement of goods occurs through a complex network linking wholesalers with merchants, down to the regional and local level through agents, gumastas, and commission agents, dalals. The movement of goods was also facilitated by growth of financial system, which permitted easy transmission of money from one part of the country to another. This was done through the use of hundis, a paper document promising payment of money after a fixed period of time, at a discount and a certain place. The hundis often included insurance, which was charged at a different rates on the basis of values of the good, destination, means of transport, land, river or sea, etc. The sarafs, shroffs, who specialized in changing money, also specialized in dealing with hundis. In the process, they also acted as private bankers as they lent money to nobles and kept their money too. By means of hundis, they created credit which supplemented the money in circulation. The trading community in India, especially in the port towns, included some of the richest merchants who were comparable to merchant princes of Europe such as Brij Vohra, Abdul Ghaffar Bohra, Mali Chetty of the Coromandel coast, Kashi Virana and Sunka Rama Chetty. Each community of merchant had its leader known as Nagara Seth, who could intercede with the local officials on their behalf. In fact, there were instances of strike by merchants in Ahmedabad to stress their point of view. Growth of administration, Mansabdari system and the Mughal army. Mansab and Jagir system which under Mughal evolved through the time. As we have discussed earlier, the Mansabdari system evolved by Akbar was the basis of civil and military administration under the Mughals. Jahangir introduced a new provision in the Sawar rank. According to it, a part of Sawar rank was termed Dawaspa Shiaspa in case of selected Mansabdars. He probably introduced this provision to promote nobles of his confidence and strengthen them militarily. By this provision, he could increase the military strength of his nobles without effecting any change in their Zat rank, and for this part, additional payment at the same rate of 8,000 dams per Sawar was sanctioned. Thus, if a Sawar rank was 4,000, out of which 1,000 was Doaspa Shiaspa, the salary for the Sawar was calculated as 3,000 into 8,000 plus 1,000 into 8,000 into 2 equals to 4 crore dams. Without Doaspa Shiaspa, the salary for the 4,000 Sawar would have stood at 4,000 into 8,000 equal to 3 crore and 20 lakh dams. Thus, the Mansabdar was to maintain double the number of Sawar for the Doaspa Shiaspa category and was paid for it. Shah Jahan introduced the month scale in the Mansabdari system to compensate the gap between the Jama, estimate income, and Hasil, actual realization. As we know, the Mansabdar were generally paid through the revenue assignment, the Jagirs. The biggest problem was that the calculation was made on the basis of expected income, Jama, from the Jagir during 1 year. It was noticed that the actual revenue collected, Hasil, always fell short of the estimated income. In such a situation, the Mansabdar salary was fixed by the method called month scale. Thus, if a Jagir yielded only half of the Jama, it was called as Shahshmaha, 6 monthly. And if the yield only 1/4, it was called Shimaha, 3 monthly. The month scale was applied to cash salaried also. There were deductions from the sanctioned pay also. During the reign of Shah Jahan, the mansabdars were allotted to maintain 1/5 to 1/3 of the sanctioned strength of the Sawar rank without any accompanying reduction in their claims on their maintenance amount for the Sawar rank. Later, Aurangzeb continued with all these changes and created an additional rank called Mashurat, conditional. This was an attempt to increase the Sawar rank of the Mansabdar temporarily. Aurangzeb added one another deduction called Kuruk-e-Dawab towards meeting the cost of fed of animals in the imperial stables. European factories during Mughal rule. Portuguese, Goa. Captured from the ruler of Bijapur by Albuquerque in 1510 and became the capital of Portuguese Empire in the east. Subsequently, on the west coast, Daman, Salsette and Bombay, and on the east coast, Santom near Madras and Hooghly in Bengal had become Portuguese settlement. Dutch. Masulipatam, 1605, Pulicat 1610, Surat 1616, Bimli Patan 1641, Karaikal 1645, Chinnasar 1653, Kasim Bazar, Barangor, Patna, Balasore, Nagapatnam, all in 1658. Cochin 1663. Danes. Tranquebar in Tamil Nadu 1620, Srirampur in Bengal, Danes headquarter. French, Surat 1668, Masulipatam 1669, Pondicherry, a small village then 1673, Chandranagore in Bengal 1690, Mahe in Malabar, Yanam in Coromandel, both in 1725. Karaikal 1739, English, Surat 1612, Madras 1639, also known as Fort St. George. Bombay 1668, Calcutta 1690, also known as Fort William in Bengal. अब आप इन सारे यूरोपियन फैक्ट्रीज़ के ऊपर ध्यान दीजिएगा एंड यू नीड टू रिमेंबर कि सबसे पहली फैक्ट्री कौन सी थी हर यूरोपियंस की, ठीक है, एंड यू नीड टू नो द लोकेशंस क्योंकि इसके ऊपर कई बार सवाल पहले पूछे जा चुके हैं. सो हाईलाइट दिस, मार्क दिस इम्पॉर्टेंट, ठीक है. Prominent European travelers, Niccolo di Conti. He was Venetian, 1420 to 1421, Vijayanagar, and it was during the rule of Devaraya. So before we move ahead with this, हम जब भी यूरोपियन ट्रैवलर्स के बारे में बात करते हैं, you need to remember the time period, साथ में कौन सी डायनेस्टी के टाइम they were in India, right? And अगर उन्होंने कोई लिटरेचर लिखा है तो you need to remember that too. ठीक है. सो मार्क दिस इम्पॉर्टेंट. Athanasius Nikitin, Russian, 1470 to 1474, Bahmani, Muhammad III, The Journey Beyond Three Seas, Domenico Pace, Portuguese, 1520 to 1522, Vijayanagar, Krishnadevaraya, Chronicle dos Reis de Bisnaga, Chronicles of the Vijayanagar King, Durat Barbosa, Portuguese, 1500 to 1516, Vijayanagar, and he came during the reign of Krishnadevaraya. The Book of Durat Barbosa, an account of the countries bordering on the Indian Ocean and their inhabitants. Fernão Nunes, Portuguese, 1535 to 1537, Tulva Dynasty, Achyutadevaraya. Mentions cultural aspect of the empire, admired the jewels worn of women and how women were appointed in the king's service. William Hawkins, British, 1608 to 1611. Mughal Emperor Jahangir acquired formal approval for the establishment of an English factory at Surat. Sir Thomas Roe, British, 1615 to 1690. Mughal Emperor Jahangir. Journal of the Mission to the Mughal Empire. Peter Mundi, Italian, 1630 to 1634. Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. The Leveling Sea, a concise biography of Peter Mundi. Jean-Baptiste Chevalier, French, 1638 to 1643, Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. Travels in India, elaborately discussed diamonds and diamond mines of India. Niccolò Munzi, Italian, 1653 to 1708, Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, History of Mughal Dynasty in India, 1399 to 1657. Francois Bernier, French, 1656-1717, Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, Travels in the Mughal Empire, AD 1656 to 1668, the history of the late revolution of the empire of the great Mughal. So now we are going to start with the next chapter, the later Mughals, the Marathas and the other provincial kingdom. As we have discussed earlier, even during the long and strong reign of Emperor Aurangzeb, the unity and stability of the Mughal Empire was shaken. However, in spite of these setbacks, the Mughal army and administration was still quite efficient at the time of his death in 1707 CE. This year is generally referred as the differentiating year to separate the era of the great Mughals from that of the lesser Mughals, also known as the late Mughals. The Mughal Empire declined rapidly after the death of Aurangzeb. It was in no position to militarily enforce its regulations on the other part of the empire. As a result, many provincial governors started to assert their authority. Many kingdoms that were earlier subjugated by the Mughals also started proclaiming independence. In due course of time, they gained independent status. The period between 1707 and 1761 CE, the time of Aurangzeb's death, to the period when the Third Battle of Panipat took place, wherein Ahmad Shah Abdali defeated the Maratha chief, witnessed the resurgence of regional identities and highlighted a sorry state of affair for the once mighty Mughals. The Mughal court became the scene of factions among the nobles. In 1707, when Aurangzeb died, a war of succession broke out among his three surviving sons: Muazzam, the governor of Kabul; Muhammad Khan Baksh, the governor of Deccan; and Muhammad Azam Shah, the governor of Gujarat. Finally, Muazzam emerged victorious after defeating Muhammad Azam Shah in the Battle of Jajua and extended the throne with the title of Bahadur Shah I. लेटर मुगल्स. अब लेटर मुगल की टॉपिक को आप सिंगल स्टार मार्क कर लीजिए क्योंकि इसके ऊपर UPRO/ARO की एग्जाम में 2023 में सवाल आया था. ठीक है. बहादुर शाह वन/Muazzam/Shah Alam 1707 to 1712 CE extended the throne with the title of Bahadur Shah at the age of 63. He followed a policy of compromise towards the nobles, granting them appropriate territories and pardoning even those nobles who had supported his rivals. However, due to his reckless grant of jagirs and promotion, the position of the state finances worsened. Historians often believe that the real power was in the hand of his Wazir Zulfikar Khan. He adopted a more tolerant attitude towards Hindus. He never abolished the jizya, but the efforts to collect the tax were not that steadfast. During his reign, the independence of Mewar and Marwar was acknowledged. However, the settlement could not restore these states to become fully committed warriors for the Mughal cause. The emperor's policy towards Maratha was also that of half-hearted conciliation, as he released Shahu but did not recognize him as the rightful Maratha king. Similarly, he granted Maratha Sardeshmukhi of Deccan, but failed to grant them Chauth and thus could not satisfy them fully. The Marathas thus continued to fight among themselves as well as against the Mughals in the Deccan. He was, however, successful in conciliating the Bundela chief Chhatrasal and the Jat chief Churaman, who also joined him in the campaign against the Sikhs. He gave a high mansab to Guru Gobind Singh, but there was a rebellion of Banda Bahadur, and it was during the course of his campaign against Banda Bahadur he died in 1712. Mughal historians like Kafi Khan gave him the title of Shah-e-Bekhabar. जहांगीर शाह. सो अब जहांगीर शाह के टॉपिक को ट्रिपल स्टार मार्क कर लीजिए क्योंकि इसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन UPSC के एग्ज़ाम में 2003 में पूछा गया था एंड UPPCS के एग्जामिनेशन में 2018 में पूछा गया था. ठीक है. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट. जहांगीर शाह 1712 to 1713 CE. With the death of Bahadur Shah, a new style of politics emerged in Mughal political sphere. Now the nobles became direct aspirant to the throne and they utilized prince as a merry pawn to capture authoritarian position. Thus the noble became kingmakers and the king merry puppets in their hand. Jahangir Shah was the first puppet ruler in the Mughal India. He extended the throne because of the support of the most powerful Iranian noble and Wazir Zulfikar Khan, who had the reign of the executives in his hand. Zulfikar Khan reversed many policies of Aurangzeb and also tried to establish friendly relations with Rajputs, the Marathas and the different Hindu chieftains. He abolished the jizya and accorded the title of Mirza Rai Rajsavai on Jai Singh of Amber and gave the title Maharaja to Ajit Singh. He also granted Chaudh and Sardeshmukhi of Deccan to Shahu, along with reconciling with Choraman Jat and Chhatrasal Bundela. However, the old policy of suppression was continued against Banda Bahadur and the Sikhs. Zulfikar Khan also made earnest attempt to improve the finances of the empire by checking the reckless grant of Jagirs, the office, while also compelled the Mansabdar to maintain the official quota of the troops. But he is infamous in the history for introducing the evil practice of ijra, revenue farming. Kal Kanwar, a dancing girl, Jahandar Shah's favorite lady, dominated the court. That's all for the day. In the next lecture, we'll start with Farooq Siyar. So keep on watching Ghatna Sutra. See you next time.